Hi friends and welcome to my channel. Today I am not ashamed to tell you that the books I read the most as a teenager were trashy, mystery, page-turning books that kept me up way too long that I only ended up with a couple of hours sleep before having to go to school the next day. In my very early teens I was reading Nancy Drew, which then turned into Virginia Andrews, Mary Higgins Clark, Jacqueline Suzanne, John Grisham. These were the kind of novelists or authors that I was really getting into at that point, probably because they were on my parents' bookshelf. I really got caught up for days reading these books that I just could not take my nose out of them. And I still do love the genre today. I still do love a good thriller, a good suspense, a mystery. I realized recently that I really haven't shared those kind of books with you before. I mean, I've read a book here and there in my monthly wrap-ups, but I've never really talked about this genre in depth. So today I'm going to share with you 5 of my favorite thriller, mystery, suspense books that all have a great twist in them. A few of these books you've probably heard of, but I am sure at least one of them will be new to you. And I promise there is no Gone Girl, there is no girl on a train, there are no girls peeping out of windows at other people's business in these books. I think part of the beauty of a good mystery or thriller book is that you have to slow down and pay attention. You have to savor the suspense and the atmosphere that's happening on the pages. And even though it feels like you might be page turning, at a rapid pace, you do have to absorb those details and really appreciate all the subtle clues that are unraveling the plot. The first book I wanted to mention is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. This book has a lot of history behind it, and it is considered to be one of the best mystery novels of all time, not just Agatha Christie's best book. And it's because it really has this impossible crime. It has a lot of interesting characters in the story, and it has a jaw-dropping twist in it that will potentially make you question this genre for the rest of your days. This book was first published in 1926, and our narrator is James Shepherd, who is the local doctor in this very small town. We follow James as he finds out that there is a woman in the town who has seemingly committed suicide just 1 year after the death of her own husband. James is called to another person's house, Roger Ackroyd's home, and Roger confides in James that he and this woman were having an affair, and that she had told Roger that she had poisoned her husband and that someone was blackmailing her about that they also knew that she had done that. But then, before Roger could find the identity of the blackmailer, he is stabbed to death. Fortunately for this little town, Monsieur Hercule Poirot has moved into the village and he is there for his retirement to just grow marrows. But of course he undertakes an investigation to find out what has happened. This book will have you gasping at the end in the last chapter. It will make you go back and reread passages. It will make you question everything you know about mystery novels as a genre. And I really recommend it. If you are not an Agatha Christie fan, I think this is a great book. I am not particularly an Agatha Christie fan. I don't think she is the right author for me, but I did love this particular book. The next book I recommend is Shadows of Winter Robins by Louise Wolhuter. This is a psychological thriller and it really blends the suspense with complex relationships and some deep, dark secrets in a family. The book opens in the present day with Winter Robins, Winter is her first name, talking to a counsellor, and we start to realise that this has been a court-mandated counselling session. Something has happened that has warranted this. And she is recounting her history, her coming of age to this counsellor. And then we go back into her past when she's about 8 years old and her mother suddenly passes. And her father just is not in a place to look after her and her brother. So they are sent away to live in Australia with their mother's family, who they've never met, they've never really heard of, because their mother was very, very guarded with her history. And when they come to Australia, they end up living on this very small plot of land in this coastal town in outside Perth, Western Australia, which is where I am. So it's set here locally. Winter does come to love her new family very, very much, but we start to see that we're seeing it through her eyes as a child initially, and then as she's older and she's recounting this information, she starts to read between the lines. And then there's a news story that appears in the current day, and it makes her think back even further and really think back to those times that she thought was an idyllic childhood, but perhaps there was something more sinister going on. Wolhuter's writing is really descriptive and gripping. It's very similar to Tim Winton's writing. If you like his writing, you'll probably like this. But the twists, within 100 pages, there was a twist, and then there was another twist and another, but it wasn't to the point where you felt like it was too twisty. They all served a purpose in the plot. They all helped push the story forward, and it was gripping. I did not want to put this book down when I was reading it, and I highly recommend it. If you love those suspense, thriller, psychological thrillers that have this added element of family secrets being unearthed. The next one I would recommend is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. I loved this book so much that I actually did an entire book review video on it. So I will leave that link below if you want to dive further. Doesn't have any spoilers, but it does talk a bit more about the themes in the book. I had a lot of feelings about this book at that point, and I still do have feelings about it. It is such an interesting book. The narrator's unreliable perspective and the gradual revealing of information and secrets really does add a lot of atmosphere to this book, and it really is quite captivating. So it is a gothic mystery set in 19th century Cornwall, and our narrator is Philip Ashley. Philip has led a very, very privileged life, very sheltered life. He was an orphan, and then he was raised by his uncle Ambrose. And Ambrose and he really mistrust women and glorify their life as this all-male bachelorhood. And eventually Ambrose goes to Italy for his health. He goes over there and he meets a distant cousin named Rachel, and he marries her. And Philip finds out about this just in letters that are coming from Italy. And eventually these letters start to become very paranoid and frantic, and he feels that Rachel is trying to do him in. And then Ambrose dies. And so, of course, Philip is very suspicious of Rachel. He thinks that she is this murderess and she is just trying to take his money. But then Rachel turns up at this estate, and his opinion changes because she is very sophisticated. She is beautiful. She's intelligent, and she really disarms him. And then what follows is this real psychological tug of war where Philip is constantly asking, and because we've got his perspective, we are constantly asking, is she a manipulative murderer, or is she just a bystander of these circumstances? Du Maurier's writing is so lush and so restrained that there is just so much tension in this book. And the twist or the suspense really hinges on the ambiguity that we are left with. You are left with this really open-ended conclusion, and Rachel will stay on your mind for a while. It's a very quick read. It is deliciously twisted, and it is incredibly atmospheric, so I highly recommend that. The next book I recommend, which I have not read I haven't read any Colleen Hoovers other than this one, and this is Verity. This is really in line with those trashy suspense novels I like to read as a teenager. They have all those secrets and there's a little bit of spice, but it is so well done that the tension just will not leave you when you're reading this book. And while I have never been interested in Colleen Hoover's books, someone I trust recommended this, and I decided to give it a go, and I could not put it down. I finished this book at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and when I closed the book and I put it down, and I was just mouth agape trying to figure out what I just read, what just happened. It has one of the best twists that I think I've read in modern suspenses. And personally, I feel the less you know going into this, the better. So I'll be very brief with the synopsis of it. So Verity is a dark psychological thriller about a writer named Lowen who is commissioned to finish writing a manuscript for another writer, Verity. Verity has been incapacitated by an accident, and they want to finish this book. So Lowen moves into the home of Verity and her husband to go through the notes of the book to try and finish this manuscript. And she ends up uncovering a hidden autobiography of Verity's that is revealing shocking secrets about her past. As Lowen gets deeper into this autobiography and the secrets that are being revealed, she just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And it complicates things because she starts to have feelings for Verity's husband. The whole book is a real mind game with us and Lowen going, what is real? What is manipulation? What has happened? What is going to happen? It is such a mind game. It's pretty tense. It is so readable. You'll demolish this in no time at all if you enjoy a good thriller, and it will leave you with a lot of questions at the end, very similar to My Cousin Rachel, actually. So the final book I wanted to recommend is one that I debated including because it is actually true crime, but I think it is the twistiest of twisty books that once you are in this world and you know more about it, you will agree. And that is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. This book is both harrowing and suspenseful as McNamara documents her investigation into one of America's most elusive serial killers. McNamara coined the term the Golden State Killer for this person. And the Golden State Killer was responsible for about, I think it was 13 murders and over 100 burglaries and all sorts of horrible crimes through California in the 70s and the 80s. McNamara was a true crime journalist, and she had a blog that she kept up called True Crime Diary. And she became so engrossed in this case, investigating, talking to people, trying to find clues that no one else could put together. Like this was cold case for like 50 years. And her dedication to the investigation really dredged up this cold case, so actual authorities started to look into it again. And it was just one of those moments highlighting the power of citizen sleuthing, which was pretty popular in like the 2010s through to now, but I think it really had a heyday in the early 2010s. And because of her investigations, they did reopen the case and they did start to look into it again. But there is a few really heart-wrenching twists in this, and one of them is that McNamara, unfortunately, she passed away quite suddenly in her sleep in 2016, and she was partway through writing this book at that time. So after she passed, her husband and an investigator and a journalist that she was working with closely decided to put the rest of her manuscript together and finish the story for her. And so in February 2018, they published her book. And then 2 months later, the authorities caught the Golden State Killer. This was a man who was in his 70s and had lived a long and happy life. And then I won't tell you exactly how they found him, but they found him just 2 months after her book was published. And there is such a moment of, I'm not sure if it's providence or serendipity, of a moment in this book where Michelle writes a letter to the Golden State Killer. And just reading this letter, knowing how he was caught, and it is so spine-chillingly fantastic. My heart is just racing right now when I think of all of the moments that had to converge to this moment in time, and it is phenomenal. And the book is interesting as well because it not just talks about her investigation, but it talks about the toll that it took on her life personally. And so it is really well done. She was a wonderful writer. It was put together really well in the end. And if you are a true crime fan, if you want to read something with a little bit of a difference, and I can't think of another case that is in comparison to this in our modern times, but I would recommend it thoroughly if you're into mysteries and thrillers and you want something with a real twist. This is a great one. So those are 5 of my favorite mystery thriller books of all time. And I hope that there's at least one in there that you might be into if you particularly like this genre. It's something I pick up here and there. It's not something I like to read a lot of. I think I went a bit too heavy in that era of citizen sleuthing, of podcasts and documentaries, books, all that kind of true crime stuff. I just went a bit too hard and heavy. So I just kind of take it a little bit at a time now. But I hope you enjoyed these. If there's one that you would like to recommend, I would love for you to put it down in the comments below. I would really enjoy that. So please do that down in the comments, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.